Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that is sending shockwaves not only through Russia, but across the entire world. Ukraine's attack has turned Moscow, the very heart of Russian power, into what many are now calling a war zone. For years, the Kremlin projected an image of total control, insisting that the conflict would never reach the Russian capital. That illusion has now been shattered. What we are witnessing is not just another escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war, but a psychological and strategic turning point that could redefine the future of this conflict. For a long time, Moscow existed in a protected bubble. While Ukrainian cities endured relentless missile strikes, drone attacks, blackouts, and civilian casualties, life in Russia's capital appeared largely untouched. Restaurants were full, offices functioned normally, and state television reassured viewers that Russia was winning and fully secure. The war was presented as distant, manageable, and necessary. But when explosions echo near the capital, when smoke rises over familiar skylines, and when emergency sirens replace the usual sounds of city life, that narrative collapses instantly. Moscow is not just another city. It is the seat of the Kremlin, the command center of Russia's military operations, and the symbol of Vladimir Putin's authority. Any attack on Moscow carries immense symbolic weight. It strikes directly at the idea that the Russian state is strong, protected, and in control. Ukraine's ability to bring the war to Moscow challenges the very foundation of Russia's war messaging and exposes vulnerabilities that many believed did not exist. As reports of the attack began to surface, confusion spread rapidly. Airports were disrupted, flights delayed or canceled, and airspace restrictions imposed. Air defense systems were activated, lighting up the night sky over residential areas. Emergency services rushed to multiple locations, and security forces increased their presence around key government buildings and infrastructure. Even as Russian officials attempted to downplay the situation, the reality was impossible to fully conceal. Videos recorded by civilians showed flashes in the sky, smoke drifting over the city, and the tense reactions of people who had never expected to experience war at home. For ordinary Russians, this moment is deeply unsettling. Many supported the war because it felt abstract and distant. The costs were framed as patriotic sacrifice, and the suffering was something happening somewhere else. But when danger reaches your own city, when you hear explosions instead of speeches, everything changes. Fear replaces ideology. Questions replace certainty. People begin to ask why this war is happening and why they are now paying the price for decisions made far above them. For Vladimir Putin, this moment represents one of the most serious challenges of his leadership. His political power has always relied on projecting strength, stability, and control. He positioned himself as the leader who restored Russia after years of chaos, promising security in exchange for loyalty. A Moscow under threat undermines that promise. Even if the physical damage is limited, the psychological damage is immense. Once the image of invulnerability is broken, it cannot be easily repaired. Ukraine's decision to strike Moscow did not come out of nowhere. It is the result of years of survival, adaptation, and determination. Since the beginning of the war, Ukraine has faced overwhelming force. Its cities have been bombed, its infrastructure targeted, and its civilians terrorized. Yet instead of collapsing, Ukraine adapted. It invested in innovation, intelligence, and unconventional tactics. Drones, precision strikes, and creative military solutions allowed Ukraine to challenge a much larger adversary. The message behind the strike is clear. Ukraine is no longer content with simply absorbing attacks and defending its territory. It wants to impose costs on Russia that are impossible to ignore. By reaching Moscow, Ukraine signals that the war will no longer be confined to Ukrainian soil. If Russia insists on continuing its campaign, it will face consequences at home. This shift has profound implications for the balance of power. For years, Russia believed it could wage war while shielding its population from the consequences. That belief is now under serious threat. The attack on Moscow demonstrates that modern warfare has erased the concept of safe rear areas. Distance no longer guarantees security. Even the most heavily defended capitals are vulnerable in an age of drones, precision weapons, and digital intelligence. Russia's air defense systems are now under intense scrutiny. Moscow is one of the most protected cities in the world, surrounded by layered defenses designed to intercept any threat. The fact that Ukraine could reach the capital raises uncomfortable questions. Were defenses overwhelmed? Were resources diverted elsewhere? Or does this expose deeper systemic issues such as corruption, mismanagement, or outdated technology? Whatever the answer, confidence in Russia's military capabilities has taken a hit. Inside the Kremlin, the response to this attack is likely marked by tension and disagreement. Hardliners may push for aggressive retaliation, increased mobilization, and harsher measures both at home and abroad. Others may quietly recognize that the war is becoming increasingly dangerous and unpredictable. Each escalation raises the risk of unintended consequences, including wider regional instability or even confrontation with NATO. The Russian public now finds itself at a crossroads. State media continues to push a narrative of strength and control, but lived experience tells a different story. When people see smoke over their city and hear sirens at night, propaganda loses some of its power. This does not mean immediate rebellion or mass protests, but it does introduce doubt, and doubt is a powerful force in systems built on fear and obedience. International reactions to the attack on Moscow have been cautious but intense. Western governments are carefully monitoring the situation, balancing support for Ukraine with concerns about escalation. Some analysts argue that striking Moscow increases the risk of a wider conflict. Others believe it may force Russia to reconsider its strategy, as the costs of continuing the war become harder to bear. From Ukraine's perspective, the risks are real but unavoidable. Ukrainian cities have already endured years of devastating attacks. Hospitals, schools, and residential neighborhoods have been destroyed. Millions have been displaced. Restraint has not spared Ukraine from suffering. In this context, applying pressure on Russia's leadership and population is seen as a necessary step toward changing the course of the war. The humanitarian dimension of this conflict remains heartbreaking. Civilians on both sides are caught in the middle of decisions made by political leaders. Ukrainian families live with constant fear and loss. Russian civilians now experience a taste of the insecurity that Ukraine has faced since the beginning. While responsibility for the war lies with those in power, ordinary people bear the consequences. The digital age plays a crucial role in shaping perceptions of this moment. Smartphones, social media, and instant communication make it nearly impossible to fully control the narrative. Every video of smoke over Moscow, every clip of air defenses firing, becomes part of the global conversation. These images travel far beyond Russia's borders, shaping how the world understands the conflict. For Ukraine, turning Moscow into a war zone, even temporarily or symbolically, is about more than military impact. It is about reshaping the psychological battlefield It challenges the idea that power flows in only one direction. It shows that Ukraine is capable not only of surviving, but of shaping events in ways that force Russia to react. As the war enters this new phase, questions about the future loom large. Will Russia escalate further, intensifying attacks on Ukrainian cities in response? Will it tighten repression at home to maintain control? Or will this shock push some within the Russian system to consider alternatives to endless conflict? History shows that wars often change direction after moments that shatter assumptions. This may be one of those moments. For Vladimir Putin, managing this crisis will be extraordinarily difficult. Authoritarian systems are designed to project strength outward while maintaining calm at the center. When the center itself feels threatened, the system becomes unstable. Increased censorship, arrests, and propaganda may follow, but fear is difficult to contain once it enters daily life. Globally, the implications are far-reaching. Other nations are watching closely, drawing lessons about deterrence, vulnerability, and the future of warfare. Allies and adversaries alike are reassessing assumptions about power and security. The idea that major powers can wage war without consequences at home is increasingly outdated. Shockwaves in Russia are not just physical, they are political, psychological, and strategic. Ukraine's attack on Moscow marks a moment when the war crossed an invisible boundary. The conflict is no longer confined to one country's territory. It has become a struggle that touches the core of Russian identity and authority. As we look ahead, uncertainty dominates. The next moves by Moscow and Kiev will shape not only the future of this war, but the broader international order. Will this moment deepen chaos, or will it force a reckoning that leads eventually to resolution? No one can say for certain. One thing is clear. Ukraine's attack turning Moscow into a war zone is a defining moment in this conflict. The illusion of untouchable power has been shattered. The shockwaves will continue to ripple outward, affecting decisions, perceptions, and lives far beyond the battlefield. Thank you for staying with us through this in-depth and critical analysis. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more updates and detailed breakdowns as this story continues to develop. Stay informed, stay alert, and we'll see you in the next video.